Hey guys, well, I'm continuing with the series of covering my multi-tools that I currently own, sort of as a reference to refer to in future videos when covering other gear, mostly multi-tools in this case. In front of you is the Leatherman Surge. And again, if you've watched my channel for a very long time, going back to the original Get Home bag, which we're currently in the process of redoing, very much needed. I think it was in 2008, over 4 years ago. My Get Home bag series was out there and is very outdated. But in that, we discussed the use of the multi-tool of the Leatherman Surge. The Leatherman Surge is definitely a large multi-tool. To give you just a size reference, the one we reviewed earlier, Leatherman Skeletal. And, but this really has just about everything you need in the size that you can kind of depend on. I had mentioned in my earlier video of the Skeletal how I had sent it back a couple times for breaking the jaws here on the actual plier head. And so when I first moved back to Central Oregon, I started using the Surge a whole lot more. And it was mostly because I needed something that was a little bit bigger, a little bit sturdier, that could handle the job of plying out nails and all sorts of stuff that you find yourself doing in more of a rural, middle of nowhere environment. The Leatherman Surge was kind of ahead of its time as having all the tools be accessed from the outside. And it's just a big version of the first waves that they were doing that. And, on each side, let's see, it's got some wear. I've never had anything break on this. And, on one side you have the serrated blade. So we'll pull that out. Kind of take a look at that. It is a chisel grind, so it's only one side. This side is flat. Still handy for webbing and things like that. Definitely doesn't get used as much. Has kind of the claw foot here, so you can kind of get under clothing without stabbing anybody if you're using it sort of a medical shears or emergency. They all do have a lock on them. The main blade over here, and I believe these are 420 high carbon HC, and I really like their designs. Leatherman did a great job by putting their knives where the cutting edge is at the bottom. So if you are cutting an object, it is not in your way, where there are other knives that would have had that blade on top, and therefore you have half the multi-tool sort of in your way for your cutting tasks. This generally stays pretty darn sharp because it is not my primary cutting tool. If I'm carrying the Surge, then I'm usually carrying some sort of EDC blade that gets used more. This is simply used for the utilitarian functions on here. In here, we'll be doing some other tests later. You can see this is still covered in wood from those tests. But it has, currently, as far as I know, it just has this saw, and then it also has a metal file. And you're able to change these out by putting these in, different configurations. Well, we will show the, you can get other sort of hacksaw blades and modify them to fit in there. But currently from Leatherman, it's just the saw blade and the file. But it still gives you the options. It's up there with the, and it does have a lock on it. Put that back later for the sake of time. But when we get in the driver section, one of the things that makes these things very popular is the fact that you can change out all the driver bits in them. Last but not least, on the outside is a very large scissors. And you have to open it all the way so that can lock, which enacts the spring here. But these are, a fairly good size scissors, easily actuated with your thumb. And we have found through much use, even in wildland fire, that when you're cutting bandages, you're cutting moleskin, you're cutting a number of things, including your own skin, that these Leatherman scissors work better than most of the scissors on the market. I don't know whether it's their just initial design, as sharp as they are, or what. But I think for me, it's that they can keep these two jaws clamped close enough together so you really get a good bite of both the sharp edges. And a lot of the other ones, you'll get this, it's hard to demonstrate here, but you'll get cutting, and if your scissors aren't sharp, like a piece of paper, that paper can actually fold in between the gap between those two. And we found that often with sort of other multi-tools, and we may get into that in the future. But open it right up, like every multi-tool in the Leatherman line, and you see the enormous head of the pliers, but it's very long. It comes down to an extremely fine point. So as big as the surge is, I've always appreciated the fact that these heads can get all the way down in size, and we'll just, I have this here, kind of give you an idea of how much thicker these are compared to the Skele-Tool. And just, I've never had an issue. This is the original surge that I bought years ago. Those of you that care, there is a graduated scale on the outside of the handle here. So when you have this sitting flat, you have a somewhat of a measuring tape across there. But I've never had to replace this one, like the Skele-Tool. I've gone through, I think this is my third one that I've sent back and used the warranty, and this is the original surge that I bought years ago. The only addition that I would say is maybe look at the newer Super Tool 300, because it does have replaceable cutting wire cutters in it that uses the 154 cm. If that's something that you're using all the time. I don't use these enough as far as maybe doing fencing or things like that I've had to replace those. You can see they're in still pretty good shape. There's no huge nicks out of them. I'm not trying to cut the world with those wire cutters. There is some wire stripping action in between. It's kind of hard to pick up on camera, but you can use that area up there to strip wire. And then to get into the inside, which we can kind of just pull all these out, is a multi-tool to me isn't complete unless it has an awl. Awls are extremely useful, whether for wilderness use. I used it a ton during Wildland Fire to put extra notches in my belt, as my belt needed a little more cinch. Even though this does have a different bit driver we'll get on the other side, it still includes a very large flathead, which you can use for a few other things. And then the little one here in the middle, it doesn't want to come out, is an extremely tiny, which I just don't know if this will focus that much, extremely baby screwdriver. This is for extremely fine work. This is a flathead on this side. Is this friction fit in here? If I can get this out behind the camera. I'm going to have to use the pliers. There we go. Need a multi-tool for the multi-tool. You can rotate that around, and on the other side is a little baby Phillips. This is small enough to do eyeglass case, or eyeglasses and things of that nature. Sometimes little baby electronics. All of them are locked in the back. To unlock, that one is a little stiff for some reason. On the other side, you have another few tools. This is their 2D bit driver, and this allows you to use any and all the 2D Leatherman accessories if you're not currently using just Phillips. And then the venerable can opener. And that's it. I do think maybe the 300 has a few more tools, maybe not, but this is the Leatherman Surge, and it has not let me down. I have had a few people have a hard time closing it. I don't know if if you leave it like this, it doesn't want to close. You kind of have to snap it shut. And a few people have crimped their sort of hand fat in that. I have never done that. I don't know if I've just owned it long enough or what, but I have, let other people borrow this at times, usually during Wildland Fire. And more than once, some guy pinched their skin in there trying to collapse it together. But yeah, look into the bit drivers. I mean, with the ability to run any 2D bit in their exchangeable bit system, and or if you use a file over a saw, and that's sort of your deciding factor over what multi-tool to get. That one maybe has a saw and one has a file. You know, the Leatherman system allows you to adapt to whatever situation you want. I use the saw more, so I keep that in there. And this has been the Leatherman Surge review. Thank you all for watching.